Alright guys, welcome in. I'm gonna do that real quick. And we're gonna do this. Okay, today's gonna be a super chill pajama stream. Nothing super intense. I'm just trying to get back into it. I've been out of the game for a bit. I've been focusing on animations. My Cintiq is blocking my my light. There we go. That works better. Awesome. Alrighty. Yeah, okay, so we're working on page 36 and 37 today. It's just gonna be super chill. I'll answer questions if there are any. If there's not, don't worry about it. Just chill. Yeah, we're getting into it. I should probably mute my phone while I'm here. Let's do that. I am professional. Nice. Okay, cool. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Just gonna chill for a bit. Please let me know if you can't hear the music or if things are too quiet or too loud, or just let me know. Because some of my settings got messed up after an update, so we'll see about where we are. But I'm excited to have you guys all back, so congratulations. Alrighty, let's see. Okay. Should be fine for now. We should be fine for now. Okay, cool. Cool. Let's get to work. Let me try something real quick. We'll figure that out in a second. Okay. Cool. In the meantime, we'll just chill. And I'm probably gonna make this one a little shorter than normal, just because I am pretty tired today. And because there's not a lot of work I have left to do on this comic page, but I do have to get something done. So we'll figure that out as we go. is how do I want to do this? Okay, we'll think. Also, I'm good. Okay, everything seems like it's running properly, so we should be good. No terrible, terrible hiccups. Okay, so here we go. I don't know how I want to do that, but I'm not quite sure. I'd say up, but I'd also say like it's not good enough to be. And I'd usually do this, but it's already got kind of a halo almost. Let's see. Sure. Let's do it that way. Wow, I am struggling today. Okay, that works. Ish. I'll take it. Okay. But I haven't decided yet if I want tears. Because I feel like it seems legit, but also I feel like he's more in shock right now than he is like mourning the guy. So I think he'll have tears in the next page, not particularly this one. Decisions, decisions. We'll think on that one. As much as I like that droplet, I think I might have to erase it just because his face would be mostly covered by his hat. And therefore there wouldn't be a ton of drips on his face. But I think one is enough. One is fine. I can deal with one. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Gonna knock that one down just a bit because it bugs me how bright that one is. Okay. I think those ones are good. Yeah, I think those are solid. Okay. Last panel, and then we can move on to 36. Because yes, I did do 37 first. I made sure to sketch out and line art 36 first, just to make sure that I had the pieces that I want. And then I went to 37 just, you know, to make sure that I had not only continuity, but like I get all the big stuff out of the way. Because sometimes when you're doing double pages, you just feel like you're gonna fall apart. You're like, this is too much. So hopefully it works out. Hopefully I did the right thing. I just recently rewatched the Goofy movie. And I can't get certain quotes out of my head. Like the "I'll be there in a minute, you party animal, you." That one, I just, every time it makes me giggle. And then the other one that makes me giggle is just usually Max, a lot of Max type of stuff when he just falls over himself, or like he's just really confused, or like really dopey. I think it's very funny because that was me in high school. So whenever he does it, I'm like, "Oh buddy, you're not alone. I got you." It's one of my favorite little character bits about him, is how desperately klutzy they made him, which is phenomenal, but he doesn't have his dad's luck, so it doesn't like even out, which, you know, it's one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, you know, I didn't realize how lucky Goofy is until his son does the exact same thing and does not get the same amount of like like karma, like doesn't get the same bounce back as his dad, which I think is interesting. I feel like another interesting thing that they did was Disney lied to us. Like, he's supposed to be considered not cool, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure like he was the pinnacle in my high school. Like, he was like the cool kid, and like, I don't know, I think it's interesting. like I want to know where he's supposed to be in the map, because he was considered like the cool kid in my generation. But I was very similar generation to him, so I don't know if it was like a location thing or if it was just a you know, they were trying to make a point thing. But that is the biggest lie that Disney has ever told us, is that Max Goofy was not a cool kid. And then even when he got in college in the sequel, it was just freaking hilarious to watch him just kind of like, they're like, "Oh, you're the lame kid," and it's like, no, he's like, you know, he's pretty solid. You know, he skateboards. He's kind of the Tony Hawk era, so that would have been way cool. And like, obviously he's got game because of the first movie. So anyway, I just thought that was very funny. I was like, this seems legit, but also it feels like they're trying to push something that seems like, because like when I was a kid, and I've talked to a lot of people, apparently a lot of people thought that Max was really cute, and like, not in like the, oh, he's you know, he's really attractive or whatever, but it was like, you know, if, because like he's a Disney character, so obviously he's anthropomorphized, but like if he was a real kid in my school, I think I definitely would have been in the same boat of like, he's a cool kid and like he's kind of cute, you know, because like that haircut that he has was like the signature cute guy of that era. So like, I don't know, I feel like they're trying to code him as something that was like super cute, and they're trying to lie to us that he was not popular. Because I'm like, I don't know about you. That seems a little suspicious to me. Okay, let's grab this one. Also, I watched the second Shazam. And there's a few things I don't know how to feel about, and there's others that I thought the entire movie was pretty solid. And I give it a solid rating. Which is really hard for me in DC films, because DC films are kind of a hit or a miss for me. There's not too many in the ballpark right now that I've seen that I'm like, ooh, you know, that's really solid. And as far as like TV series, I love their TV series. As far as like not live action, but cartoons, you know. Anything animated from DC I know is gonna be a bop for the most part. Like they have a couple misses, but it's like, whatever. You know, their track record is pretty solid. But yeah, I saw the second Shazam before I even saw the first one, which is, you know, not the best practice, but you know, I saw the second one first, and then with my friends I watched the first one, and it was pretty solid. I liked it. It was definitely one of those movies where I was like, okay, well, you know, I really like his character in most things that I see, so like, you know, what's gonna be the difference? What's gonna be the drop? What's gonna be like the point that they're trying to make with this film? I think they did a good job on it. I think they did pretty solid. Okay. I think that's solid for Rain. I think that's pretty good. Okay. Shading. Okay, and that's my thing, so I can go. Also, I've started reading Nevermore on Webtoon, and I'm kind of excited about that one. Pluto so far is my favorite character. Oh gosh, and the kid who seems like he's supposed to be Creole, question mark. He's got the accent and he's got the look for it. But I think, because he always has his little French mannerisms. Duke. That's his name, Duke. I like him too. He's kind of cool so far. I mean, I haven't gotten too far, so I don't know if there's like twists of like, oh no, they're terrible characters or whatever. You know, I don't know that yet, so just, you know, cut me some slack. But also, so far, it's pretty solid. I like it. The story itself is pretty good. And like the art is always fantastic. I read Shiloh probably, I don't know, 30-ish episodes in, I think, question mark. But I had to stop. They did something or other, I can't remember. I lost momentum on it and I had to like stop reading it for a bit. And I also just got really busy. But Shiloh was good for that reason too. I really liked the art in that one. But especially for this one, they did a solid job. I don't know how I feel about like the hyper realistic backgrounds that they're doing, but I bet that's to save time. Because I would have done the same thing for my comic if I had any sense. But I don't. So instead I just hand draw all mine. But yeah. Anyway, so they did a really good job on the art, and I feel like the characters are really solid so far. I don't think I like Annabelle yet at all. Like, she's not great. Hopefully, fingers crossed that there's something in there that gets a little better between like any of her character development. Because right now she's just kind of like, she's very manipulative, and I'm not about that life. Oh, and I can't remember the redhead's name. I think she starts with an M. But she's also pretty sweet right now. I don't know if there's gonna be a time where I, like, take back my words on that. But she's sweet so far. I like her. She's our main character's roommate. I can't remember her name, and I can't remember... Crap. I can't even remember the first, like, main character's name. Dang it. It's gotta be something. It's gotta be... I'll think about it. Because I can't remember it for some reason. So I've been reading a little bit of that, and then I've also been reading a little bit of Lackadaisy. Always, always, always a good comic to read. Lackadaisy Cats. And they just had a an opportunity where they are doing an animated film right now. And it comes out this week, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the 29th that it comes out, so in 3 days. And I'm very, very, very excited about that. Because I've been waiting forever for that thing, and I tried to kickstart it, but I didn't have money at the time, and, like, oof. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. And it really deserves a lot more credit than it gets. So, highly recommend that one. Can't recommend that one enough. But yeah, I've been trying to get into Lore Olympus, but I've heard mixed reviews. I personally think it looks really pretty. Like, I love the art style. I think it's really gorgeous. Most of my friends say it's really solid, but I heard some people say that it was kind of like meh on the other hand, and I just kind of want to figure that out for myself, so I'll start reading that soon. I think that's all I had to do on this page, but I could be wrong. I'm gonna say yes for now. So I've been watching reading those recently. And I've been watching a lot of, like, old-fashioned kids cartoons. Like, not old-fashioned, but, like, 80s and 90s. Early 2000s, stuff like that. But, yeah, recently I'm like, oh yeah, this is pretty solid, you know. Let me get my bearings on this page before I talk too much. Okay, well, let's knock something out that's easy so I can get it off the page and just breathe. Let's do speech bubble colors while I'm thinking. But anyway, there's been some solid cartoons, especially on Disney Plus. Like, I've been rewatching a ton of those. And I've been getting really into, like, my childhood cartoons. And it's been pretty fun so far. Just rewatching whatever I need to in order to have like, not a solid read, but like watching whatever I want to that makes me happy, you know. And I feel like that's really helped just make me more excited about stuff. Oh, speaking of childhood stuff, my hype for Mutant Mayhem is so through the roof. Like, I'm very excited about it. I don't know how to feel yet. Like, I like the art, I think. I don't know. I always have to get used to the new voice actors is the problem. So right now I'm kind of holding off for that. I'm trying to, like, get my bearings with them. But so far it looks really pretty. I'm not sure about the humor. I feel like I need to know more about it in order to, you know, judge it properly. But it's been exciting. I watched the trailer and it was super intense the first time around, and then the second time I watched it I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, I think the thing I'm lacking, because, you know, once the hype dies down you can kind of get a better view on it. I was like, I think the thing I'm lacking with this one is, like, humor in general. Because it's very nowadays slapsticky, you know. It's very like, oh, here's this thing, or here's that thing, or oh, we ran into this, or blah blah blah. And for me, I'm into, like, super clever jokes. Don't ask me to make any. I can't guarantee I can make them, but I definitely have a preference definitely have a preference for clever jokes. Like, if it's clever versus, like, I don't know, nowadays has kind of a hard time with, like, bathroom humor. If it's between those two, I'd much rather a clever joke. But I think I need to hear more of their humor style in order to be really excited for it. Just because every once in a while I'm like, oh, well, you know, this could be a fun movie if they keep these jokes. And Marvel's done that a lot recently, where they'll swap out the joke that they actually had. So like they'll make a joke and it's really funny in the trailer, and you're like, oh, that's good timing, you nailed it, like that was solid. And then you go to watch it and you're like, oh, well, never mind, this is not actually exactly what I expected. Like Marvel tends to swap out a lot of stuff nowadays, at the very least. Like, I don't think I remember that happening in a lot of the old commercials, but in the new trailers they have a lot of stuff where they'll swap a joke and it's not as funny as what you thought it would be. Or they'll have, like, you know, a scene that's been completely taken out and they just mention it offhandedly, and it's like, that's not what we expected. We were hyped for that scene specifically, not for something, you know, kind of vaguely similar. And definitely not for them just to offhandedly talk about it, you know. So that's kind of where I'm at with trailers. But once the hype died down a little bit for Mutant Mayhem, I want to know what their style of humor is gonna be, because I feel like that's gonna make or break the film for me. Because usually Ninja Turtles is pretty solid, but you need to make sure that your humor is on par, because otherwise it's not a great watch most of the time. Because the main appeal of Ninja Turtles is the humor, and they've had pretty solid humor in the past, so we'll see. So far, so good, but also just want to make sure that they're doing well, if that makes any sense. If they're like, I don't know, if they're kind of haphazardly throwing stuff together, I'm not sure if I want, I don't know if it's gonna be a good idea or not. Yeah, 2003, 2005 had it down pat. Yeah, they also balanced the drama really well. Because, like, that's a huge thing for me, is if you can make something silly seem not silly in an appropriate way, you know? Like, if you're just gonna slam drama in for the sake of drama, that's not a good way to do it. Like, you want to make sure that you're building a concept that people can follow and still appreciate, you know? But that's a huge appeal of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, is the humor. And so, in my opinion, the ones that haven't nailed the humor tend to be the ones that are a flop. Just because it's already such a wacky concept that you're not really there for, like, I don't know. I say this from the bottom of my heart, but you're not really there for wacky turtles. you're you know, speaking as a Ninja Turtle fan for, like, almost as long as I have lived, you're not really looking for wacky turtles. You're looking for, like, connection between the characters. You're looking for humor and for these little moments that you can take away and you're like, oh, that was cute, or oh, that was so sassy, or, you know, whatever, blah blah blah. But in my personal opinion, I feel like there's a lot to be learned from some of the ones that did better with humor, than just winging it and doing whatever the humor nowadays is, because that tends to flop. Because, like, people go through waves of type of humor, right? Like early 2000s, it was kind of like early 2000s, it was just beat up on each other. That was the only thing they had. I loved that one, but it was very the time, because I look back on it and I'm like, ooh, that's a little abusive. I'm like, that's a little much for, you know, a kid's show trying to preach, like, peace and love and understanding. So it's one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, you know, seems legit. See, okay, don't hate me. I actually differ on that opinion. Because I feel like Rise does a good job on certain things. Like, no, don't don't hate me. No, just deep breaths. Deep breaths. Let me explain myself. I do think that it helps that they did the individual dynamic and the siblings, right? Their dynamics are fantastic. However, I find myself not laughing at it as much as I have in past versions of the Ninja Turtles. Just because it's not my type of humor. You know, like, it's very chaotic humor, if that makes sense. It's very let's push it in your face and hope that something sticks kind of humor. I'm not about that type. I'm more of like, oh, you know, if this or this or this works, you know. But there are a couple jokes, like most of Donnie's jokes land so hard for me. It's so funny because I'm just sitting there and I'm like dying laughing. Like even his little moment, I think it's the sickness episode, but I could be wrong, but he's trapped in that like little bubble to keep him contained, and he's like tell him yes, and you're like, what the heck, Donnie? You're like, what are you doing? And he's got his face pressed up against the plexiglass or the plastic or whatever it is, but he's just pressed up against it. He's like totally manic faced, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then like his little blurbs that he says whenever he like fights isn't just Fibonacci, and then just whoosh, and I think those are very funny. And most of his humor of like, alas, you know, despite the fact that you're the one who caused this, I'm going to have to fix it. And then April being like, ooh, we gonna have a talk? I'm like, yes. Get him. Because he feels like that type of kid where you're like, dude, calm down. We're gonna have to have a talk real quick, because that's not cool. But that's my entire existence, is just trying to like, and most of Donnie's humor sits well with me because it's my type of humor. Raph's is a hit or a miss for me, which is unfortunate because usually in past Ninja Turtles I've related to Raph the most, and he's very himbo energy, if that makes sense. Yeah. No, April's energy is pretty solid. I like it. I like April. But Raph gives himbo energy, and that's my problem, is I'm like, as much as I'd love to say he's fantastic, it's just, give me a second. but like, now that Raph has himbo energy, I relate to him less, unfortunately. I'm like, oh, bummer. But like, he's precious in his own way, you know? Like, especially with, I think it's Mrs. Cuddles or something like that. She like, the fact that, the fact that he's absolutely terrified of her is kind of funny. But also it's one of those things where I also have a really hard time getting over characters who speak in the third person. And that's his whole trope throughout the show. And I'm like, ooh, give me a second. I gotta breathe, you know? Yeah, they played up his love for animals and his love for his bros, but they took away his anger, which is definitely a huge thing. But I feel like they didn't take away his anger, they just played it in a different ballpark, which is the hard part for me. Because, like, I feel like my favorite type of character is big, strong, angry boy who has a heart of gold. You know, like he's just a teddy bear underneath the surface, but he's angry, and that's his whole, like, problem, you know? And for me, that's fine. They definitely wanted to take a different angle. I have a bit of a hard time with the fact that a lot of the characters aren't even the same archetype. Because I do have that opinion of most shows. If it's like, if you're not going to play it the way the franchise has set up, then why are you using this franchise? Like, why don't you make your own? I think it works for Rise, but I think it's like, I think it's a very fine line that they're balancing, especially when they have a really hard time focusing on some of the characters, like, and how they got that way, and not just like stereotypes, if that makes sense. I don't know. I've been watching it a lot recently with my family, and it's been like a ton of fun, but it's also been really hard to watch unless I'm watching it with them, because my brothers will be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, blah blah blah, and they'll get really into it, and they'll be, yeah, now he's teddy bear on the surface. Yeah. Leo is such a narcissist. I can't deal with Leo in this version. Actually, I have a really hard time watching him, because I like the concept, I like how they do it, but I hate that type of person in real life. Like, it's really hard for me, because it's like, he no longer has any responsibility. He's just kind of there, and if he does take on responsibility, it's very self-oriented. It's for himself to look good, which makes me a little mad. I'm like, okay, whatever. But yeah, that's been a huge thing with me recently, is I'm like, okay, well, we'll get over that. We'll figure it out, but it'll be fine. I think they're doing good so far. I just also think that I need to like take a wide lens, because whenever I see like compilations of Leo, I really like him, but in context, I'm like, ooh, buddy, please, because it's a little hard to watch. Mikey is fun, but sometimes he's got such chaotic energy, especially with the way they animate him, that I'm like, oh my gosh, deep breaths, buddy. But I think my favorite quote from him is, don't worry, I'll help cover the sound. And then he like pushes the vase over, and the vase breaking is quieter than like the soldering gun. I was like, nailed it. Great humor. But they have like, I don't know, I like the ones where it's more oriented to be like clever jokes. Like, you have to have step 1, step 2, step 3 to get the joke, rather than just like set up, knockdown, set up, knockdown, set up, knockdown, you know, because like that's more difficult to like, it's more difficult to have a more complex payoff, you know. It's kind of too in your face for my taste, but I really do like the designs that they have for them. I like the animation style. It's phenomenal. It's so pretty. I really love, it's hard to let go of exact versions from childhood, but it's also like, I don't know, it's the same principle as what they did with Velma, right? And it's like, why use the Scooby Gang if you're not going to do the Scooby Gang, you know? Like, why are you picking these same characters who are nothing like themselves once you write them, you know? So I give Rise a bit of a pass, just because they do have the same encompassing moral thought process between them. It's just a different vibe from previous generations, if that makes sense. It's kind of more of a, we're not going to do it to the letter, we're going to do whatever we want to have fun. And I see it as that way, and that's why I kind of let it slide a lot of the time, is because it's, despite the fact it's not my favorite type, it's also so good. Yeah. Yeah, humor, yeah, well, you know, yes. I think that's why you relate to it, though, is because you're a very chaotic person. That's my only hard part, is I'm like, ooh, seems legit. But yeah, I don't know. I want to do a video of them just in general. The movie was really solid. I liked it, but I felt like the characters were way pushed out of like proportion, if that makes sense. Like, not design wise, but like character acting wise, it felt very overboard. And I was talking with someone about that, and they were like, oh, I think it's because it's a movie, and it's a standalone, despite the fact it's connected, it's a standalone, and therefore kids need to understand who these guys are right off the bat. And I agree with that, but I'm also like, maybe we could try like toning it down a bit, you know, because I thought Leo was getting better as far as narcissism, and as far as like not necessarily narcissism, but just like, he has an inferiority complex, I think is what I'm, you know, feeling. But I thought he got better, and then promptly in the movie it was like 10 times worse, and I was like, oh. I was like, I need a second to digest this, because this is a bit much. So, but I really do. I love that movie. I thought it was super good. I thought that, like, as far as characters go, like, they'll always have a soft spot in my heart, you know? And, like, Raph being, 2-3 times the size of the other guys, I'm like, holy crap, you're big. But also, like, you know, how do you take that and turn it into something that's gonna be, I don't know, pleasing for both audiences, if that makes any sense. Like, pleasing towards the old audience and pleasing towards the new audience who's just trying to, like, get associated with these guys. How do you please both people? And I feel like you don't, unfortunately. I feel like if you're shooting for one thing, you have to shoot for one thing, and that's, you know, that's gonna be the end all. And then anything beyond that is gonna be a little, yeah. No, I don't want to do personal redesigns. I think they nailed them. I think honestly, I think they nailed them. Because, like, the designs have grown on me, and that's a huge part of, like, what I have a hard time with is just swapping over. But I think they nailed their designs, honestly. I just don't know if they nailed their personalities, is my biggest fight that I have with myself. Just because I think that they did well, I just feel like there could have been so much more to, like, explore as far as not making them, I don't know, over exaggerated or, like, unrelatable is maybe the word. Because, like, I feel like in the past, I felt really comfortable with them just being themselves. And then nowadays it's difficult because you're like, oh, well, you know, this is good, or this is good, or, you know, for instance, I think there was one episode that I'm thinking of in particular, but I can't remember whose. Yeah, I don't remember. But there was one episode that I watched recently that I was like, oh, okay, well, this seems legit. But then immediately afterwards, I was just like, oh, I feel like you... Oh! That's the other problem I have. So technically, I watch old-fashioned children's shows because I really like the fact that they have morals. I really, really, really love the fact that they have morals. I could do my own, but I don't think I want to. I think they're fine. But, like, I really like old kids shows because they have morals, right? They have, like, these little moments where you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty solid. I don't feel that in this version, actually, which makes me a little nervous. It just feels like it's a funny episode to be a funny episode, and I am not about that. I don't like that as much as I should. But I'm also not gonna hate on it for it, you know? Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, this sucks because it doesn't have a moral, or it doesn't have this, or it doesn't have that. I'm not that type of person. Like, if it's not my cup of tea, I'll just move on. Like, I don't see the point in, like, haggling people for it, especially not, like, the creators. Because a lot of the time, they're just kind of doing what they can to survive. But... yeah, so anyway, they had one of those moments where I was like, oh, okay, this seems legit. Yeah, it always does. Because, like, 80s generation was pretty solid as far as just, like, I don't know, they were softer. Does that make sense? Like, they were little soft beans, and we really liked them, but they were just, you know, they were soft. And that's mostly because the 80s generation was kind of, that was the vibe from the censors. There was a lot that you could sneak past the censors, but then there was also a lot that was like, oh, well, it's a kid's show, you can't do that. And I definitely feel like that morphed a lot of their generational approaches. Because in the early 2000s, it was pretty dark. it was, you know, they were seeing how far they could push it. A lot of the time the censor like snapped back on them because it was too dark. Like 4Kids always censored them, just because they had a whole thing. But yeah, for me, I feel like the generations always do, like, especially since nowadays generation is so chaotic. I think that's the reason why they're doing it more chaotic, is because it's very meme oriented, if that makes sense. Like their stuff is very, this is supposed to be a meme, this isn't supposed to be taken seriously. And then not only that, but like, I don't know, like, it's somewhere between anime and like, how do I phrase this? Somewhere between anime and memes, I think, is where Rise sits for me. And I'm not a huge meme lord, and I'm not a huge anime fan, and so I feel like that's what really grinds it to a halt in a lot of time. Yeah, 2003 was really edgy. Just because that was, you know, all the kids in 2003, me included. So, but like that's a huge thing for me, right? Is I don't really sit in either of those categories a lot of the time, and that's why I feel like I tend to not do well with that specific version of them. But that doesn't mean that it's not a good version. It's just not my cup of tea. Does that make sense? Because I don't believe in like totally roasting a show just because it's not what you want. Does that make sense? Like, if it's not what I want, I'm not gonna watch it. But also, you know, it's not what I want, you know? So, so for me personally, I'm like, yeah, anime has been really influencing cartoons, which is funny because it's kind of a trampoline, right? Like, old Disney cartoons and stuff like that, rubber hose animation, really influenced anime. And then all of a sudden anime chose to go back and be influenced, or cartoons chose to go back to being influenced by anime. So it's this constant back and forth trampoline between the two of let me take your idea, let me take your idea, let me take your idea. And it's been okay. I think it's interesting to see how it kind of bounces back and forth. But like even 2012 Ninja Turtles took a lot of inspiration from anime because they saw that the times were switching, right? They did a lot of like the little whatchamacallit, like they'll have those little anime moments where like the fire bursts in their eyes and they're like really amped up and the like stuff behind them is like I can't live my life without sound effects. I don't have words to communicate what I need. But it's one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense because of this time or this whatever, you know. But some people are like, oh, I don't like that. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, if you don't like that version, try this version, or if you don't like that version, try that version. You know, there's enough Ninja Turtles out there that it does not matter, like, at all, whether or not you like that specific version. Does that make sense? And I feel like people get lost in the sound with that. It's like they sit there and they're like, oh, it's fine, you know, it's not a big deal. But it's like, if it's like, if it's bringing you down, just don't watch it. Just go to something else. Just be a good person and, you know, filter stuff for yourself. Don't have other people filter your experience, you know? But like currently with Rise, I think it's, I personally really like it. I like the fandom the most. Which is really weird. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cowboy Bebop and Sailor Moon, etc. Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff that I remember watching with you when we were kids, and that was a huge thing for me. Like just hearing all the influences that you were like, oh, that's so cool. This is way fun. But it's also like one of those moments where it's like, oh well, you know, kids nowadays aren't gonna catch the reference. But it's the same with like Silence of the Lambs with the quote from Donnie, you know, like people aren't gonna catch that it's Silence of the Lambs because that's a little bit older for some people, especially for that generation. Like if you're a kid, you probably should not have seen that film. but I digress. But that's a huge thing for me, is I'm like, oh well, this seems legit, and you know, I just enjoy seeing the outcome, if that makes sense. Like, I enjoy seeing how it influences people in general, rather than whether or not it's my favorite. And the reason why I really like watching it to begin with is because I get commentary from siblings, you know? And since we've always been the Ninja Turtles in my brain, like, commentary from the people who I felt like were pretty inspired by them, is a huge thing to me, you know? Like, I always want to hear someone's opinion if it's gonna be about, like, oh, I really like this, or I really like that, or, you know, if you're passionate about something, I want to hear it, because I really like when people are passionate, because it just sends a better message than when you're negative, you know? Let me... Yeah, that'll work. And, like, that's really hard to do nowadays, because a lot of things are really negative, but, you know, if you just put your mind to it, just, you know, make it a goal to either swipe through stuff you don't like, or just don't comment on it, or, you know, just filter your own life. You don't have to have everyone do it for you, you know? So, I digress. Oh, yeah. So that's my rant about Ninja Turtles. That's my rant about Ninja Turtles. That's all I got, really. But yeah, Mutant Mayhem so far I'm very excited about, but I want to make sure that I'm not getting my hopes up too high, just because they tend to have worse movies than they do cartoons, if that makes sense. Just because I feel like the setup's a little harder to do in movies. Unpopular opinion, the second Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movie was actually not terrible. It was bad, but it was not terrible. I actually liked it just because the familial, whatchamacallit? The familial interactions seemed a little more smooth. You're welcome. You're welcome. But it, you know, those bits and pieces with them in it, it felt a little more genuine to how siblings interact than the first one, which I really appreciated. I also can't get over that scene of Raph stepping up to Leo after he's like, what are the traits of a ninja? And then he starts to list them, and then Raph gets up onto the platform with Leo and he goes, and honor, and the whole thing shakes. Like, that's still ingrained in my brain to this day, because I remember in the theater and the whole theater shook, and I was like, oh, he's mad. Like, we're not going anywhere. Raphael has something to say. Like, I was terrified as a kid. And then it popped up. I was like, but so far I've really liked it. I think it's, you know, I think that movie is a show of what to do and what not to do at the exact same time. I feel like it just needs pieces picked out of it, and it would do really, really well. So, yeah, I just, you know, strange movie. Don't know if I'd recommend it to people, but that is definitely one of the ones where I'm like, oh, you didn't do as bad as I thought you would, which is, I don't know if that's a compliment, but we'll take it. I also think that, I hit the microphone. That's a bad idea. I also feel like, Hollywood is trying to shift out of, like, doing remakes. I don't know if they will, but it feels like they're trying. Because DreamWorks right now is doing the, Kraken movie, but I can't remember what it's called. Something Teenage Kraken. And I'm actually a little excited for that one. I'm not usually a fan of that type of art style, but I am personally excited for it. Just because I think it's going to be a refresh. You know, it's going to be something that we can be excited of. It's not like a reboot of something else. So I'm pretty excited for it, but we'll see how it turns out. I can't state if it's gonna be a good film just from, you know, 2 commercials that I've seen. But yeah, so far so good. So far so good. I think it's got good potential, you know. And then hopefully if it's got really good potential and people see that, you know, original ideas do well, we'll get out of this like reboot funk, which is, you know, it's been fun. It's been fun. Like there's good movies that have come out of it, but like Sonic Sonic was actually pretty solid, despite everyone's like panic for it on Twitter, which I thought was hilarious. But it's so far so good. It did really well in my opinion, and I'm glad that they changed the design because I didn't think it was that bad, and then I went back to an old post of it, because like it was bad, but it wasn't like, you know, eye-opening for me just yet. Like I was like, maybe they tried, maybe they did a really good job and they tried really hard and it didn't work out for them and blah blah blah. And then we got the actual one and I was like, whoa, okay, never mind. I was like, yeah, that's a good thing they changed that, because otherwise that would have been a little bit much for the poor fans. Like people would have flipped out even worse. So but yeah, anyway, I thought the Sonic movies were pretty solid. I liked his dynamic. I'm all about characters, if you haven't noticed. Like I really like character dynamics specifically in movies, which is why I watch like things like Ninja Turtles and Gargoyles and stuff like that. It just makes me happy. But I always have to remember that, like, despite things being a good dynamic, it can also be a really bad story. And that's my biggest thing, is I'm like, I'm not saying the plot is good. I'm not saying it's a good story in general. I'm saying I really like the character interactions because they felt like they were supposed to be there, you know? Like they felt like they were part of the world. Instead of like, I don't know, kind of hanging on by a thread kind of vibes. Because some movies do that, where you're like, ooh, you really could have fixed that a little bit, but you decided not to, and that makes me a little concerned. But yeah. I don't like my shading job this time around, unfortunately. But quick question for you guys. Have you read any good webtoons recently? Because on that same topic of Nevermore, I do highly recommend that one. It's pretty solid. So far, at least. I haven't gotten much past, like, 29, I want to say. Somewhere in there. It's pretty good, though. I like it. But I'm looking for some good ones that I can, like, sit down and binge. Or at the very least, just kind of, like, try out and peck my way through, you know? Like, just kind of something soft to get me through, like, downtime with myself. Like, if I'm like, bored and I need to sit down and read something, I wanna have something that I can read, that I can, like, absorb knowledge from for my own comic. Just because that's something I do. Because I tend to do, like, how can I apply this to my own comic in a way that's creative? So, like, art style, like, it's aggressive. Art style or, like, tips or stuff like that. I tend to try to go a little more on those than I do storyline. Also, great minds think alike, because there's so much that happened recently that came out, and I was like, that's my storyline. I was like, what the frick? But it came out recently. I was like, ooh. It's like, you got to the punchline faster than I did, but my setup has been going that direction for years, so I feel like I'm okay. Paraprofessional. Okay. Okay. What's the one that you read forever ago that was like the skeleton man in a suit? That was like his lower jaw wasn't there, but he was a fancy bean. I feel like there was a comic back in the day where you read that and it was, yeah, what's that one? I want to know that one because I feel like that's right up my alley. I'm asleep a little bit. Technically, the nice thing about this panel is once I shade those two, I could just drag it down to the next panel. Oscar Zahn. Okay. Strange Tales of Oscar Zahn. I'll have to remember that. I'll try to write that down somewhere. Actually, I'm gonna write that down on a sticky note right now because otherwise I'll forget. Okay. Pencil. Sticky note. Strange Tales of Oscar Zahn. Comic. Cool. And then I'll write down paraprofessional as well. Paraprofessional. I misspelled professional for some reason, even though it's right in front of my face. I guess my hands were going too fast for my brain. Professional. There we go. Boop. Nailed it. Okay. Oop. Those are officially stuck to my computer screen. Good. Nice. Cool. Okie schmokie. I think I need to lessen Butch's shade because as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, gross. Oh, I think I've seen that one. I think I've seen that floating around because I actually thought that looked really interesting. Grab this and let's keep it dark, but like let's lighten up the palms a little. There we go. I like that better. It's hilarious. Good. Good. I need some good funny ones in my life to balance out all the dark, scary ones I've read. There's a couple that I read and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a sludge. Like, this is gonna be an absolute pain to try to read. Just because my poor soul will feel like I am trapped. Trying to think of another one that I've read recently that I think is really solid. I don't think I have read a lot of solid ones recently. Like Shiloh was one of my favorites to begin with, but I haven't read that one recently, so I can't recommend it because I don't remember if it's I don't know if it's good. The romance 5 years ago. Okay. That may be a little harder for me to get through because I am not a romance person. Like, I get into romance, I'm like, oh, because most of their trope is like, if you would have just talked to each other, this wouldn't have happened. And that's my biggest complaint is like communication, you know? So we'll see. We'll figure that out. But I think if they do it right, I really enjoy romance if it's solid. But a lot of the time they fall back on that type of stuff. Like, I remember there was one that my friend was trying to get me into, and I haven't read it, so I can't recommend it or say anything bad about it. But it was a romance one, and they were like, it's so good, it's so good, it's so good. And then I sat there and I was like, this is all, like, I read like maybe first 2-3 episodes, and I was like, ooh, nope. It's like, I gotta chug through this and get to the part where they're not gonna have this trope in here, or I need to not read this at all. because I am not that type of person. I do not like, is this just... Yeah, I don't like miscommunication tropes. Le normal. Normal. I know that's not how you pronounce it, but that's okay. Was my favorite high school. Okay, okay. I'll have to put that one down. Yeah. Yeah. See, I actually like romance stuff that subverts that a lot of the time. Ooh, geez. Sorry. I like romance that subverts that a lot of the time because it's like, oh, well, you thought I wasn't going to sit down and talk with you about this? First 5 minutes, it's solved. Oh, cool. Now what? Well, now we're a power couple who's gonna take on the world. So, I don't know how to explain that. If that makes sense. Like, I appreciate it when they're always like, ha 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 ha. Monsters that fall in love and friends that deal with life stuff. Super cute. I don't know why, but as soon as you said that, my brain was like, Monster in Paris. I was like, ah, yes. That movie. So good. So good. Let's see. Let me turn on my black and white filter real quick, because I need to see how are these colors laying properly. As if they're not, I need to change them. Okay, so what about different thought process? Is that any better? Just a little. But I don't know if I like that. Okay, have a good night. I love you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll probably end it in 10-ish minutes. Just because exhaustion. But we'll figure that out. Hopefully I can get this page done before... Oh, I was supposed to do their markings and stuff before I shaded. Dang it. Heck. Well... Yeah, okay. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out in a second. Yeah, at least I remembered now. I need to pull up my reminders again, because every time I don't, I'm like, oh, dang it. Yeah, so we'll see you later. Have a good night. Appreciate you, love you. Goodbye. Are you? I think I have to pull up page 35, maybe. Nope, one further. 34. Maybe I can pull it up over here. I think I can. Honestly, I should just have a turnaround of these guys at this point. There we go. There's his markings. Okay, so he's got one across the side there, and then a hatch on the right. I think the only two that would show... Technically, neither of them would show on that section. Except for... maybe the other section. It's on Jensen, I think. Learned a little trick about markings as far as like wounds. An easy way to do them is take your mechanical pencil, because it'll already make it kind of jaggedy looking. Okay, so I think that's up there and that's down there. That's over there. That's there. I think technically nothing would show on his thing, on his shell. I could still probably put like indicators that it's up there. Yeah, I think that'll work. And then I don't think... Yeah, I don't think the wasp has anything on him. So I think he's okay. Yeah, I think Robinson's pretty solid. We'll figure that out. Okay, so technically Robinson doesn't have any, which means I could just take Jensen's, duplicate them up from there, and then I can take channel 2, Jensen, those, and then move them down. I think right around there should be solid. Right there-ish. Then I'll just fix them up a little. There we go. Okay, cool. I think that fixed it. I think that works. So, let's see. And panel 3, and then I can cross that off, which will be good. Okay. Let's go back to this one. Ah, see, technically I've made a mistake. It's supposed to be... Let's see. One over like that. Oh, I made a major mistake. Whoopsies. This is why we always make character sheets, kiddos. Because otherwise we make mega mistakes that we need to fix. His hands aren't in any other panel. Nope, good. Okay. Because apparently I did a big mistake. He does not have 5 fingers, he has 3. And down these emotional ways. Okay. Getting a little better. Now I just really want crumble cookie. You know? Like, not sponsored or anything. But like crumble cookie sounds way good right now. I've not looked at what their menu is for this week. I need to figure what it is. Okay. I think I got it. Wow. Pepperoni. Broski? Okay, I think I got it. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Simple fix. Simple fix. Except for, I think, since this is an index finger, it should be a little taller. Now that there's only 3. Okay. Nice. Nice, 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 nice. Okay. I think that works. I think that's good. And if I'm not mistaken, they're not at all in the second one, so hands should be fine on that one too. Let's just make some aggressive marks. Boop, boop. Also, I'm glad I caught that ahead of time, because otherwise I would have been relentlessly teased. That's just the type of people I like. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And then unfortunately, I also made another mistake in his character, which is his shell is ever so slightly darker green. Near the top. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. Just don't like it. Don't know why. Just don't like it. So all I know is it's supposed to be at least a couple shades darker. Just a pop. So I think it's there. A little closer to blue, but not much. Just like... like there, maybe? Probably. Oh, no, that seems too dark, because those match in pretty well. This is also why we make color palettes for all of our characters later down the line. Because I don't think that's right, but I don't like it. Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take that instead. That'll be fine. There we go. There we go. We'll take it. Boop. Because it's only one panel. Like, it's only one panel it's in. I'll have to grab the color from somewhere later. Okay, but I think they have their cuts and bruises and whatnot. I think Robinson might need one just on the tip of his foot, question mark? But I could be wrong. Just feel like it's supposed to be right there, you know? There, I'll take it. Cool, cool, cool. I think that is allowed to be crossed off now. Okay, so I've got skin shines, overlapping voices, and wet left. Which is very important. And I have to shade. And then it'll be all done, and then I can just breathe for the rest of the night. However, I think that's it for time. So, thank you guys all for joining. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being sweet. And I hope you have a good night. Sleep well and do some good work. I'll see you guys later. Love you, bye.